Gervonta Tank Davis didn't stay silent after hearing Jake Paul boast about training with his former sparring partners. Tank fired back, making it clear he isn't shocked that someone from his own circle switched sides because lately, that kind of betrayal has become nothing new to him. But he also made one thing absolutely clear. None of it will matter when the lights come on and the bell rings. According to Tank, no amount of borrowed experience or imitation can prepare Jake for the reality of sharing the ring with him. This all came after Jake revealed he'd been surrounding himself with southpaw fighters to copy Tank's movement, including one man who used to be in Davis's own camp. Jake Paul fight at, because no amount of sparring can change the size gap between them.
What weight would it be at?
195.
Oh, wow. So he would go all the way from 40 to 95?
Yeah, I mean, it would be an exhibition.
Okay. And so what does that mean? Is that 3-minute rounds?
Yeah, 10 3-minute rounds.
And when you say exhibition, like, what are the restrictions on that?
No restrictions, just the fact that we couldn't actually get it professional.
Standout name on Jake's sparring list is none other than WBC lightweight champion Shakur Stevenson, a man who's wanted to fight Tank for years but never got the chance. Now, instead of standing across from him in a real match, he's helping Jake prepare to face him. Jake even admitted that Shakur wants to test himself indirectly, saying, "He just wants to see how I do against Tank," along with Stevenson. Jake's bringing in Erickson Lubin, Jermaine Ortiz, and Montana Love. But Tank isn't sweating any of that. He's confident.
So I say, you got to take him serious. You know what I'm saying? Because he talked about, he had you on a hit list before this fight even happened. So his mental is on you. So you have to take him serious.
Paul isn't hiding his plan for Gervonta Davis. He's going all in on size and strength. The blueprint is simple. Use weight and reach to dominate space. Coming in around 195 pounds, Jake's going to look massive next to Davis, who built his legacy at lightweight. Paul's strategy centers on keeping the distance when it benefits him, then using his frame to smother Tank up close. He's trying to turn every clinch, every lean, into pressure that drains Davis's stamina. It's not just about boxing. It's about breaking down the smaller man both, mentally and physically, until the fight becomes one of endurance, not skill.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis. They just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't going to be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch.
Training. Jake has been focused on pacing, volume, and rhythm. He's studying how to throw more without exposing himself, mixing bursts of aggression with moments of calm control. He knows Tank is a master at punishing mistakes, so every punch has to be calculated. Jake's team has built a system designed to frustrate Davis, make him chase, force him to work, and turn the ring into a grind. The plan isn't to outbox Tank, it's to outlast him, to make him uncomfortable and force him into a war where power and pressure outweigh precision.
On 199 pounds with a 6'4" wingspan. Tank, 5'5", 133 pounds, a 5'7" wingspan. Tank fighting me would be a fairer matchup. We're basically the same size. And you wonder why fans think Jake's fights are rigged? Because every time we see some nonsense like this, it feels like WWE with boxing gloves. Here's the kicker, though. Jake threatened to sue anyone who calls his fights rigged. Yeah, the same guy who preaches freedom of speech now wants to ban.
Even though Jake keeps his trademark trash talk alive, mocking Tank's size, bragging about finishing him early, and even throwing cheap shots at his personal life, it's all part of a bigger psychological game. He wants to pull Tank out of his calm zone and make him emotional. But Tank has seen it all before. His demeanor hasn't changed one bit, still cool, still unbothered. When asked about Jake's supposed advantages, he just smirked and said, "He's just big. That's it. He's not faster. He's not sharper. He's just another guy who thinks weight wins fights.
Of which you have none of. Hank is telling anybody that will listen that there's a size problem. My skills and my experience in boxing, I do not have to wonder who's in the bar tonight. Any bar I go to, I rule the bar. No, it turns out that you don't. Just need some big guy to corner you, apparently. Boxing has never stood its ground. Boxing has never been able to explain why Floyd needed a half hour to get rid of a guy who's never boxed before. Hank Davis has already began this.
Tank's camp isn't impressed by Jake's power either. Coach Calvin Ford has been vocal, saying they've faced harder punchers in sparring and survived far worse. The only thing that concerns him are the gloves. The fight will be in 12-ounce gloves, which Ford says favors the heavier man. He's pushed for smaller gloves to even things out a ounce for Tank. An ounce for Jake, but even then, he's confident it won't change the outcome. Size only matters if you can land clean, Ford told reporters. And Tank's not going to let him touch him.
Wait, Jake Paul versus Tank Davis? Could Jake Paul's biggest strength be the very thing that takes him down? Confidence built his empire. He believed no one can break him, but Tank Davis isn't like anyone Jake's faced before. Tank doesn't talk for hype, he hits to end it. If Jake walks into that ring thinking this is another
for Davis, this fight isn't about ego or emotion, it's about execution. His style has always been built on patience, precision, and devastating timing. He doesn't waste energy. He studies patterns. Against Jake, that patience becomes a weapon. He knows Paul tends to fall into predictable habits after a few rounds, and that's where he plans to strike. Every overextended jab, every clumsy attempt to close distance, Tank will be waiting, ready to counter with perfect timing and surgical accuracy.
I guess Tank is going broke because that's the only justifiable reason you ruin your legacy against a guy like Jake Paul. And yes, I do think Jake Paul is going to win. Tank Davis is a much better boxer and has crazy power, but he's 5'5", 130. That power is not going to carry over against someone who is 6'1", 210. And it's not like
what's caught fans off guard is Tank's energy leading up to the fight. There's no loud talking, no over-the-top showmanship. He's calm, focused, almost detached. But that calm is not indifference. It's quiet confidence. He doesn't see this as a rivalry. He sees it as business. For him, Jake Paul isn't a threat. He's an opportunity to remind the world that boxing is about mastery, not marketing.
Actually retired, get the out of the sport, because he's been, making claims saying that he's done and that he's about to retire. Basically, he doesn't want to no more. And I feel like, he got the big fight, and there's really no bigger fight than this. There's just no bigger fight than this, bro. At first, people were saying
Tank has been brutally honest about Jake's fighting style. He calls it mechanical, saying that Jake may have improved. But he still fights like someone trying to remember instructions instead of feeling the rhythm. You can tell when he's about to throw, Tank said. That's not how real fighters move. For Davis, that's the biggest gap, instinct versus imitation. And he plans to expose that difference under the bright lights. When instinct is all that keeps a fighter standing.
It's kind of weird because Jake Paul is extremely bigger than Tank. And but with it being exhibition,
The real test for Jake Paul will come when pressure replaces strategy. Once Tank starts closing the gap, tagging him clean, and forcing him to think while getting hit, can he stay composed? Jake's size and power are real, but so are Tank's speed and timing. And when fatigue sets in, the smaller man's explosiveness can become overwhelming. Davis's team believes Jake's conditioning won't survive a fight built on rhythm, speed, and accuracy. When the storm hits, the difference between a fighter and a learner will be impossible to hide.